everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint. In this video I'm going to be painting some hordes, I guess, multiple sculpts from Batman Gotham City Chronicles, and these are the Gotham City Police Department. You've got the sort of baton police officer and the handgun police officer. Now there are 4 of each of these miniatures, so I thought I'm going to go for some batch painting, and with all this Citadel Contrast Paints being all the rage at the moment, thought we'll take this for a spin and see how we get on doing some batch painting. So the first thing to note is both of these miniatures are primed in that Citadel colour grey sear contrast undercoat. I've not experimented enough to know if you need this for certain, but I'm sticking to the rules at the moment while I'm playing around and sticking to the primer they recommend. I should mention I did choose the grey sear. This is the one that makes the colours a little bit colder by the end of the process. And where are these little guys that I painted last time? So you had the version on the grey sear here, which Benson did, quite a dark blue. He did do 2 coats, and then the version I did, which was on the Wraith Bone version, which gives a warmer tone, but it's a lot lighter. Now, I'm not entirely convinced this is the correct blue. This is going to be the Achelian green version, and it's quite a turquoisey, quite a bright blue, but it's the one I've got. These paints are expensive and I haven't got the other colours, and I don't even have this colour. This is Benson's, so I'm just borrowing it, but we'll see how we get on painting up these 2 models using this. So I thought, unlike other videos, because this is batch painting, I'm going to show the time as well, and we'll see how quickly we can do these 8 miniatures, just to give you some sort of reference. I'm not even sure how quickly I can do it, but I'm going to try and do it as fast as I can, speed painting, but I'll also just sort of show the other tools I'm using. So I'm going to be using the hobby holders to grip these, and then all the miniatures that are off camera as well are already fastened on these caps, so I can just screw them on and off, give me more control. The next tool I will be using is the Redgrass Games wet palette. Now I don't always use this or even that often use it because I don't have problems with my paints drying, but because I'm going to be painting 8 of them using the same paints, this is going to be absolutely spot on for keeping that paint nice and moist, not drying up. So it's going to save me some refill time, which is going to add up over the course of this video if I had to put more paint out every 1 or 2 miniatures. So this is going to save me a lot of time. It's also going to thin the paints for me, saving me a little bit of time, but also just make it go on a lot easier, a lot smoother, and it's going to make the finish look a little bit better, even though I'm speed painting. Speaking of Redgrass Games, some of the paintbrushes I'll be using, or the majority of paintbrushes. First of all, I've got my little Game Envy beam, brush beam. So let's just remind you guys, at the moment, any new sign-ups, $10 or more on Patreon, will be getting a Watch It Paint exclusive base beam. So my paintbrushes, save them rolling all over the place, will be just off camera, sat on this stand. So the paintbrush I'll be using primarily are the 2 Redgrass Games. I've got the 2 brush, which is huge. It's mostly going to be applying the contrast paint over the blues of his uniform. And then for the detailing, I'll mostly be using this 00 brush, and that's going to be for all the non-contrast paint, his face, his belts, his guns, baton, his eyes. Well, probably not his eyes. That's where the Army Painter Insane Detail brush is going to come in. I'll do the eyes. I will probably almost definitely do all of the eyes off camera. I just won't be able to do them. They're teeny tiny on these miniatures, and I'll have to do them off camera, so apologies to that. You'll get to see all the miniatures done except the eyes, but eyes are eyes, white and some black, so I will do those off camera, save us an embarrassment of ruining 8 miniatures' eyes. But in fact, after this part of the intro, I will only be showing these 2. I'll do all the rest off camera, but I'll try and do them all in one sitting unless anything interrupts me. Sophie, for example. I'll also have everything ready, so all the paints that I'm using, these Army Painter war paints, should I go through them? Potentially. So I'll be using Necromancer Cloak for all of the belts, his baton and his gun. So all of the black parts, I'll be doing Necromancer Cloak, followed by toning that down with a dark tone wash over all of those bits. I'll be using Machinegun Metal for all the silver, which is maybe some detail on his gun, belt buckles, and a couple of studs on his pockets. I'll be using Survivor Skin, same as Barbarian Flesh, and a flesh wash on all of his skin. Bright gold simply for all of the police badges, etc. like that. White will be for his eyes, black will be for the pupil. He's also got a white shirt on, so I'll be doing a splash of white on that. Black will be for the rim of the base as well. Necromancer Cloak will go on the base, and then I'll probably just smash on some Crusted Sore and some wet mud just to give it a bit of colour to that base, just make it look a little bit dirty, a little bit more interesting than just a plain grey base. And I think that's it. I've got 2 pots of water ready to make sure I don't have to go and change any water, so I can really settle down to this challenge and see how we get on. So let's test out this. It's all about this. It's all about the contrast colour range, Citadel's new one. Let's see how fast we can paint 8 miniatures. Wish me luck, guys. Should we have a look at the time now and just assume I'm going to get straight on after this segment? Oh, see you later time. 20:33. So let's get on. See you in a minute. And I am back. Right, guys. Well, I'm finished. I know how long this takes and how well it goes, but you guys can listen along and we'll see the progression. So, as I mentioned, primarily this video is going to be showing off this Citadel Contrast paint, this Achelian green, which is actually blue, which is incredibly confusing. What is Citadel playing at? This doesn't help people. And I think these paints are aimed at helping people, helping new people get into painting, helping people paint more. I don't think these paints are going to make me a better painter, but they are, hopefully, as we're going to see, make me a faster painter and make it more accessible for people who've never painted anything, just to be able to pick up these pots and have pretty decent results very, 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 very quickly. So I'm using that Red Grass Games 2 size brush, the biggest one. They only do these 2 brushes. This is their largest one, and I'm going to be applying this 1 thick layer principle. And as I mentioned in the intro to this video, I'm not sure this is the best blue. Hopefully somebody with more of these paints can leave comments below just to point people out what might be a better blue. This is a little bit turquoise, but plus that grey sear primer, it is going to blue it down. It's going to cool the colour and make it look a little bit more blue. I don't think it's quite navy by the end, but it is a tone that I do like, so bear that in mind as we go through. There might be better blues that you could pick, but have a look how these look at the end and see if this is actually just the blue that you would like these 2 sculpts to look. Now, I'm being semi-careful, but not really. The first model I painted quite accurately, making sure I wasn't going over any of those grey straps I'm going to paint in later, being careful around his hands. And on this one, I was just going a little bit faster, thinking it doesn't matter. The grey is going to go easily over this blue. If anything, it's going to make it go on in sort of one coat much easier. It's already going to be a dark base for it to go on. Now, I would warn around the skin, be a little bit more careful because the blue is a little bit harder to paint over, and I'm going to be painting it with some thin layers of skin colour, some thin layers of survivor skin, and that is going to be a little bit difficult. I'm also going around most of the models, and I'm going to be careful to stop the pooling of this blue in some of the areas which I would say is flat. So like the bottom of his jacket is quite flat, and then he's got some parts of his shin which I think sits quite flat. So you can see that's now 20:49. So what we're talking there, about 15 minutes so far, and I've done all 8 now. I'm showing you these 2 on camera, but I did the other 6 off camera. So you're talking 15 minutes to whiz through the majority of the work we're going to be doing tonight, and that's how it looks. This isn't dry yet, and because I'm trying to do it quick and get a feel for how quickly you can paint this set of miniatures, I'm not going to wait for it to dry, and that is going to cause some issues, but I get by. So moving on to the survivor skin, that barbarian flesh, army painters, I just love this skin tone, and I pick it for nearly all my miniatures. I'm going to be using the detail brush that Red Grass Games have got now, this 00, and it's a lot thinner, easier to navigate across his head. Now, I think in the artwork, these police officers have hair just poking out the back of his hat, and I think on the sculpt you can just about see it, but I'm going to paint all of this particular sculpt as a bold police officer because you can't really see the hairline. It looks like his sort of neck crease anyway, and I just like that look, and it's going to save, you know, having to paint a little bit extra for next to no game. I'm also going to want to do both their hands. Both the miniatures have got both their hands showing. This one's slightly harder because they're separate. The other sculpt, they're together, so it's quite an easy little blob of survivor skin to put on. Now, this is in my Red Grass Games wet palette, so this is nice and thin, but I put it in when I started the video, so it was slurping up some of the water in the palette, so it's thinning it for me as we were waiting. I put all the paints out all at the beginning, so they're all just slowly absorbing a little bit of water and getting the consistency that's going to go on really nice. Again, I'm also trying to use some of that grey sear undercoat to highlight this skin for me, so I'm putting on the thin layer, And if some of that grey is poking through on the most raised parts of his fingers, his nose, he's got a few, what would you call them, like on his neck, his muscle, like sort of lines on his neck. So they're poking through a little bit of this grey sear, and that's just going to help highlight it at the end. Once I put on that flesh tone, the grey is going to be a bit more flesh colour, but it's going to be lighter. You see another 15 minutes have gone. All the skin, all 8 of them is now done. The other 6 are done off camera. Then we're going to be using Necromancer Cloak, that really nice dark grey that I favour by Army Painter. And this is going to be for all of his belts. He's got a couple of straps on his uniform. He's got a belt around his waist, a bunch of pockets attached to his belt, and then he's got his gun pocket, his gun case. What do you call that bit? He's got his gun on his waist, and he's also his gun as well. I'm also going to do his gun in dark grey, and I'm just going to highlight it with some silver to make it look, I think, more like a real metal gun. So again, this is that detail brush, that 00, and just a little bit of care now, because you've got that blue on and you don't want this to bleed, and they are thin belts that you're trying to paint on, so a little bit of care with all the pockets. Just bear in mind they are 3D, so you've got the top and the bottom slightly to do as well. Once I've applied that shade, it's going to cover a lot of that anyway, but you'll want to make sure that you catch it enough to make this look nice and realistic. He's got his baton poking down as well. The underside of that's a little bit tricky to reach, but none of this is particularly difficult. I'm doing these nearly as easily on camera as I was doing them off camera. I think this belt up his back here, this strap, is probably the most difficult, the one you want to take care with most. If you are using the hobby holders like I am, I would advise clicking on the grip that you know, for holding with your fingers. I don't use it on camera. Off camera, I would be using them. It's only because the grip gets in the way of the camera, so it often takes focus. That's why you don't see me use it on camera, but when I'm painting just by myself, not filming it, I always use that grip, and it's helpful here. Now hopefully you can notice that Aquilin Green, that blue contrast paint that we've put on over his entire uniform, is really starting to dry now, and you're getting to see what the finished product of his uniform is going to look like. And at this point I'd noticed I was pleasantly surprised. I think that blue is actually probably more or less what I want. I maybe wanted it a bit more navy, but I'm quite happy with it. Makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit brighter on the table. Now here I'm just painting his gun. This one's a little bit close to his face, and his hands are both holding it, so a little bit of care to be taken here. And then his boots. His boots are the last bit of Necromancer Cloak to do. So I'm just doing basically 1 stroke either side of each boot, so it's only sort of 4 strokes, nice and quick. And then I am going to switch to the bigger Redgrass Games brush, that 2 size, and I'm just going to very roughly apply it to the base. Now I want it sort of grey, but I don't mind the odd splash of that grey sear sticking through. I'm not too fussed about it at all. I'm going to be covering this in dark tone, so it's going to tone that down anyway, blend it all a little bit together. And I want it a bit mismatchy, a bit interesting, you know, just a bit more realistic, to a very quick flooring, though nevertheless I am trying to do this as fast as possible, basically painting this. No, this isn't not only a batch paint, this is a speed paint. I am genuinely just going as fast and hard as I can to get these models done, just to see what's capable, and you guys can see the finished product at the end and judge for yourself. You can obviously slow down which bits you want, or even paint faster than I do if you would like, but the more you slow it down, the more accurate it's going to be, and just genuinely the better the finish will be. But Batman's got a lot of miniatures, and I've never speed painted. I've batch painted, but I don't enjoy it. Oh boy, do I not enjoy it. This is probably the first time I've batch painted in a year, if not more. Like, I really try and avoid batch painting, but I'm very, very interested in these contrast paints to see if they just make it fun or more appealing or just easier. Like, sometimes you just need to batch paint. We're all playing these games, right? And some of them got hundreds of miniatures, and I'm not going to care if these 4 that I'm not very interested in anyway don't look as good as the rest. The heroes, I'm going to take my time over. I might try and get some contrast paint to test it out and see if the heroes would even be good enough compared to me painting slowly. One thing I did consider doing is painting them normally and sort of comparing how long that takes, but I'm pretty fast at painting anyway. I can tell you it's probably going to be about 10 minutes longer per miniature for me by the end, just because that contrast paint, instead of contrast paint, I would just apply one of the blues that I've got and use the blue wash, Army Painted blue tone, and it was going to essentially achieve exactly the same effect. So it's not going to cost me any extra money. It will take me some extra time, and the drying time on the washes is noticeably longer than the drying time on the contrast for whatever reason. I guess it's more watery. And when you're speed painting, like I decided to do for the first time ever, that drying time matters. I didn't even wait for the contrast to dry, and that's quite quick to dry. Later on, I'm going to be applying some of the washers. I ain't going to wait for them to dry either. I would advise at home, go and get a cup of tea. I didn't get a cup of tea. I spoke to my wife for a couple of minutes throughout this process and asked her how she felt about me disappearing for a couple of hours to get all of these miniatures done, and she said I was being a little bit ambitious to try and do 8 miniatures in a couple of hours, so we'll see how I get on. Joke's on her though. I obviously just was never going to go to bed until these were done, so had it taken 8 hours, I'd just had to stay up all night. I mean, you know how it is, guys, you know how it is. Next, we're going to be using bright gold just for a bit of detailing, and this detailing can really make the very quick job of that contrast paint look a little bit more professional, a little bit more like you gave a damn and spent a little bit more time. So if you, like, for example, these details of all the badges and all the studs on the lapels at the top, those flappy fasten-y bits on the top of his jacket, whatever they're called, just a couple of those, and another badge on his shoulder, one on his, not on his shoulder, on his breast, one on his hat as well, and that's going to add a lot to the miniature. Same as I am going to do his eyes. You might want to skip that. The shade's going to fill them slightly, and they're very, very small, and it's very, very difficult. You're going to see I've had some success and some not success. Hopefully I can highlight some of them so we can all have a giggle at some of my eyes. But they're small, that's my excuse. They were very, very difficult. But adding them, just, when you pick up a miniature, you're going to look at the face. You're probably going to notice the eyes, and if the eyes are there and if the eyes are decent, you might not even notice that the miniature was a really, really rushed speed paint, and it's going to add a lot to it. So it's probably worth it. But say it's probably worth that. You saw that I painted all of the uniform in sort of 15 minutes, and like one set of eyes. Nah, it didn't take that long, but we're talking a minute, maybe 2 minutes per set of eyes, which is a huge amount of time if you think how small they were and how little it is on the miniature. So next I'm going to be using a little bit of fur brown and a little bit of crusted sore, and that's a deep terracotta red by the Army Painter, which we'll see in a minute. But I'm just painting on the other sculpt, the one with the handgun sculpt, and I'm going to give him a hair because his hairline's more prominent, and I could really see, and that's when I realised that he had hairlines. So I'm going to paint on 2 of their hair with this fur brown and 2 with the crusted sore. I'm also then going to use a smooshing brush by, who's this guy? Rosemary & Co. Very, very nice. They make very, very nice brushes. Really enjoy their smooshing brushes. So I'm sort of not quite dry brushing, but I've not got much paint on, and I'm switching between the crusted sore and this fur brown and just smooshing some of that onto the base and just making just a haphazard, a little bit there, a little bit here, making it look a little bit random. Give my watch a shake. How are we doing? What's that, about an hour and a half now? Not bad, not bad. We're getting there. We're onto the shade, we're onto the tone in the Army Painter's shades now. So we're going to start with this flesh wash, and we're going to be applying that light tone. Would be similar here. Flesh wash is just a little bit redder. It makes it look a little bit more flesh-like. Light tone is similar. It's a bit more yellow. I'm just going to be applying that with the detail brush all over his face, all over his hands, doing it quite thick, letting it pool a lot in the recesses, just to try and tie it in with the high contrast of that Citadel Contrast paint. I'm also then going to move on to dark tone, which is Army Painter's black wash. Again with the detail brush, because I'm going to apply this to all of those Necromancer Cloak areas, so very, very carefully. I'm going to paint down those straps down his chest, try and let it sort of pool either side of it, just make it pop out a lot more from his shirt, and then all the way around his belt, and that's going to pop out and pick out all the details in those pockets that he's got all these little equipment and pieces in. Get a couple on those, I'm going to call them flappy material bits on his shoulders, those lapels maybe. Somebody let me know in the comments below if I'm right or wrong, can't remember. His gun, get some colour on that. There's a little bit of detail this can make pop out of his gun. His belt's primarily the best place to do it, and I'm letting it pool above and below the belt as well, and just giving it sort of almost like comic book style. It's just making it pop out a little bit more from the blue, and just give him a little bit of colour. I'm also applying it with the 2 size brush all over the base, so that's taken a while. That was a little bit of time to apply all of that. So Again, I'm not going to wait for it to dry. I would highly recommend you guys, if you're following along, let these washers dry as well. You're just going to get into some trouble. I had to fix a few things, but it didn't. You can see the time at the end, and we're getting close towards the end now. So bear in mind, I'm doing 8 miniatures at once here. So every time you see the clock move on, bear in mind I did 8, so you can only see 2. We'll see them all at the end, so you can see I'm not fibbing to you guys. They'll all suddenly appear. So I'm using matte white, and that's just to paint in the collar of both of the miniatures' shirts. One thing to mention, one of the miniatures, the baton one, he does have his tie on, so you will want some Necromancer Cloak on there if you didn't notice me doing that. And then I'm going to use dead black to paint around the rim of the base and really bring the focus, as I nearly always do, paint the rim black and bring the focus up to the model and see what you've actually painted, take it away from the rim that nobody really cares about. It gives it a nice little pedestal to stand out from, and it looks fancy. I think it's a nice effect. I like this. Sometimes colour those bases. I've not actually played Batman yet. I don't know if colouring them would be more beneficial to understand whether it's a goodie or a baddie, or I don't know what they're for. I've not played it. And if somebody let me know if these should be coloured, let everybody else know in the comments if a coloured rim would be more beneficial for working out what it is. But I think once you've painted a miniature, you don't necessarily often need to colour the rim of the base unless it's a specific type you want to quickly pinpoint out and see who it is. So 10 to 11, it's getting late, guys. I'm getting tired talking about it, just remembering the ordeal. I hate batch painting, and this is it. I'm just trying to let you see the eyes here. I did go and paint all the eyes off camera in that bit, and then we're going to be using Machinegun Metal. So I'm using my dark silver, and this is just going to be adding the silver detail. So he's got a couple of belt buckles on his strap across his chest on his actual belt, and then he's got a few poppers on his gun case and all of those pouches that are sort of around his belt. I'm just going to go do a Machinegun Metal. I'm not going to highlight that up, so that's why I was using my darker silver, just a little bit more detail. Adding all these little bits of details actually going to, as I mentioned, I think cover the fact that you've spent 15 minutes painting all of the uniforms of 8 miniatures. Job done. I think it's great. I'm also going to do a little bit dry brushing of this silver across his gun, catch sort of the edge and the barrel, just make it look metallic. As much as I want it to be quite dark, quite black, I still want it to look like a metal gun. Another piece of tooling I forgot to mention, as you're probably familiar with if you watch the channel, I do like to use a good Pringles lid as a dry palette. It's nice and easy. Peel all of the paint off to reset it, or you can just bin it and then you get to eat some tasty Pringles. That's it, guys. 22:58. What's that, like 2 hours 25 minutes, all 8 miniatures completely finished, and this is how they look. So I'm pretty happy with that. In fact, I'm very happy with that. What we're talking, 18 minutes a miniature. There you go. I'm just showing that they all are really here, and I'm not bull essing you. And this is genuine. This is how long it took me, and this is what they look like. So let me know in the comments below what you think. It's not going to win any prizes by any means, but this was speed painting. This was batch painting. I think this is incredibly fast. I don't think I've ever painted something like this in 18 minutes, and I did 8 of them, which is incredibly tiring, and on camera. Only 2 of them were on camera, but the lights and the cameras are all in the way. 2 hours 25, guys. Let me know what you think. Would you like to see some more speed painting, some more batch painting? Here we're getting a little bit of a better view. Hopefully you can see. Now, not all of them are perfect, and there were some pooling mistakes, so do look out for the horrendous pooling that can happen. You might need to slurp up some paint off of the miniatures to get a much cleaner look, so just bear that in mind. That can happen. And also, these eyes are really small. I think I nailed some of them, but oh boy, not all of them. Now, having said all this, I'm pretty happy with these contrast paints. They're not going to make me a better painter. They're not going to make you a better painter. They will make you a faster painter, and they will help brand new painters. And hopefully there's loads of brand new painters watching this channel, and you can see that you can just get into paint. That was not difficult. I was not taking any time. I wasn't taking any care. And these are infinitely better than grey plastic on the board, and hopefully better than something, right? Like, these are all right. Somebody tell me they're all right. I'm happy with them. Hopefully you're happy with them. Let me know what to paint next in Batman. What else can I use contrast paint? And let me know what colour contrast paint I should be using. There must be some more hordes to do, some more multiple sculpts I can look at. Let me know the colour you think will do nicely for that, and I'll try and pick them up and do another one. If you'd like to see one, let me know in the comments below. I don't know, just rambling. Do you want any more? Somebody Somebody validate me. Anyway, thank you all ever so much for watching. Do please check out our Patreon. Remember, the offer ends at the end of this month, so you've got sort of 4 days left if you would like to pick up an exclusive Watch It Paint It brush beam like I used in the video, except it's Watch It Paint It and it's acrylic. Do check that out. It massively supports the channel, and these paints are expensive. We need some support, right? Plus it makes us feel really good. Thanks guys, thank you ever so much, and I'll see you again next week.